We found that post-purchase is what works well because there's not any risk of backfiring. You've already captured that initial purchase. So, we use an example of like pre-purchase, that can maybe come off as spammy and you could potentially risk losing that initial purchase and then you're out an entire order.
Emily Foreman, it is good to have you here in Ecomonics. How are you doing today? How are you feeling?
I'm doing well, feeling good. It's been a rainy day here in Florida, so it's kind of nice. Change of pace from the sun.
Yeah, I mean, when I hear a rainy day in Florida, just because of what I pick up in the news, it's anywhere between a light showering to we are currently airborne, and
a torrential downpour. It's either Florida, if anyone's familiar with it, goes from zero to extreme in a matter of seconds. So yeah, rainy days is not normal here.
Yeah, but one of the things, this is like a side note. I always ask, how are things? How are you feeling? But I also ask that before we turn on the recording. But I'm just debating, do I want to just wait on asking that before the recording starts and just be really robotic and characteristic?
Yeah.
Yes, we will set this. Anyways, so sometimes I'm a little too self-aware. All right, here we go. Emily, opening question is for you to tell us, what do you do and what are you up to these days?
Yeah. So my name is Emily and I am the CEO at CartHook. And at CartHook, we are a post-purchase offers app that work with Shopify brands to help them elevate their checkout strategies. So that could be anywhere from increasing their customer lifetime value, increasing their AOV, elevating their conversions. So that's what I do at this desk is kind of help the team build out the best post-purchase offers app.
And yeah, you're remote working, and you and I have a similar situation where most of whom we work with are a few bodies of water away.
Yes, yeah. So we are all 100% remote as of, I think, a few companies that made that shift last year at the start of the pandemic. We just fell into that remote life and it worked out well for us. We had always had two offices. Our primary one was in Portland, Oregon, and then we had an office in Ljubljana, Slovenia. So we were very spread out, and over the past year, a lot of us have ventured into new areas of the country. I just recently moved from Portland to Florida, and we have folks on the East Coast in Pennsylvania, Croatia. We're all over. So time zone management is a valued skill here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but ask a couple of warm up questions about that. So I'll go with two. One of them is, when conducting team meetings where people are having them at different times of the day, you have people who are waking up, people who are, sleepy, people in the middle of the day. Do you notice, say, it has an impact on the energy of the meeting and people at different points in their psychology for the day?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't noticed that, and mainly because a lot of the people on their teams are typically within a 2 to 3 hour time difference from one another. So it's the benefit of working with people in a similar time zone. I think more of the struggle is in my seat of where I deal with everyone. So I'd say for the most part, team meetings are pretty productive because we're all in a similar time zone area. Where it gets unique is during company meetings. So all hands. It's the morning for some folks. It's late evening for some, and it's mid-afternoon for others. So it's a very distributed kind of work environment, and so far so good. It's been working out really great.
Yeah, I've been tempted because I have to do morning meetings on Wednesdays, and I've been tempted to just not take any more recordings on Wednesdays, just because. There's days where I drink coffee for the joy of it, and then there's days like today where I actually need a cup of coffee. Otherwise, my levels are all over the place. So we're gonna look at some stats and some data just to see if there's a correlation between the Wednesday recordings and the response for them.
Test it out.
And then the other one that I was wondering too, and I haven't really asked too many pandemic questions lately. I think for the most part, I got most of those out of my system, but I am interested about this one, which is. when you were meeting in person, when you had your offices in Portland, and I think it's key to, I guess, know how many people were there. So if it was just like two people, I'm not sure
Yeah,
the efficacy of the
no,
question, but
we had quite a few. So at one point there were around 12 of us that were in an office. So CartHook relatively is a small company. But yeah, at one point there were 12 to 14 people when we were working in the office. So going from that to your home office was a shift.
And I have to wonder just about the change in the creative process, because I do think that a lot can be lost when people are no longer in the same room and are bouncing ideas off each other in a more pronounced way. And I again, I'm keen to ask about this one too, which is if you had spotted any changes in either dynamic or even in the way people were generating ideas in person compared to what had to happen afterwards.
That too is something that we were kind of always hyper aware of when moving to this remote life now. So there's this thing of it's hard to differentiate between when you should be working and when you shouldn't. I think early on, a lot of us were just like, we've got to sit at this laptop. I need to have Slack show that I'm online. I have to like overly communicate what I'm doing and where I'm at. And we kind of ebbed and flowed with how that worked out. There were some points where there was silence, right? So you fall into, you're 6 months into this quarantine lockdown, and it's, mentally exhausting outside of work as well. And so being able to recognize that and acknowledge, like, take breaks. My concern is if you're getting your work done, great. It's harder now too in a remote environment to, collaborate. You can't just turn and chat with, the director of marketing to ask a simple question. You want to be thoughtful when you're slacking because you don't want to interrupt somebody in their work week, even though we didn't think that same way when you're in the office. I'd easily like pop my head over my laptop and flag someone down for a question. You do miss that kind of that collaborative approach and really kind of chatting with your coworkers on a different level of it doesn't always have to be work. And I think now our interactions are very much questions about work, a little personal chatter in there, but really focusing on work. And then you're having your work-life balance really as a forefront too. Like, so you're not locked at your desk for 12 hours a day because you're in the same space as it. So yeah, collaboration, we have more meetings, which is not terrible. We encourage Slack communication is huge. That's what that's our primary form of communication. But yeah, in terms of collaboration, I haven't seen a huge dip, if not an uptick of us just connecting more and talking through more strategy approaches to the product. So it's been interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I wanted to share, and then we're going to sink into the functionality of your. Oh, by the way, I had a bit of a hard time just locking down exactly what I call it, app or service, or can we go with app? Is that fine?
Oh, I call it an app. Yeah.
App. Okay.
It's a Shopify app. So, or a plugin. So
right.
Yeah, app. I love an app.
Okay, great.
Let's stick with app.
Okay, I got it. And one of the things that I noticed is the difference between being in a building where there's shifts, and over here it's really up to me to distinguish my shift time from my non-shift time. Is I needed to put some of that pressure back on the table, because the pressure of, I got to leave at 4:00. They're locking the building behind me to make sure that things were getting done. Whereas here, I would wake up and it'd be, depending on the day, it'd either be 8 a.m. or 6 a.m. And I think, I've got all day to do what I got to do. Mm-hmm. And 11 o'clock rolls by. I still got most of the day.
Mm-hmm. I got you don't 3
have
that urgency. Yeah.
Well, I usually go to sleep at 11. I could push it to 12. So what I found was by actually starting my shifts in the evening, it recaptured some of that pressure, because, I have to go to sleep. So there had to be a cutoff point for me.
Yeah. So did you find it hard for you then to disconnect from work if you're working later and doing, I don't know if you have like this wind down routine to get ready for bed, but I'm similar with you. It's like I can get stuck on the schedule and start working and then you go to bed and you're just laying and your brain's still just going.
Yeah.
And,
Well, you know how when people are in say like in kindergarten, how a kid will pour a bunch of paint colors onto a sheet of paper and see, oh, I wonder what color I'm going to make, and then it all just ends up being like sludgy brownish.
Yeah, brown.
Yeah, that's my mind. That's my mind a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting problem, and it pulls solutions from a lot of places because it's about mindset, it's about health, it's about how I exercise, it's about sleep, and I think there's a higher degree of and I don't even have to think it, I know it's true, of self-discipline, of finding the right balance. But it also, at the same time, it also has helped me identify all of these other problems in my life. And because I don't compartmentalize work as easily as I used to, because I would, be in a physical compartment. Now that it's led to a lot more self-growth. And so in the long run, I'm grateful for it. But in the short run, it's been a mess.
Yeah, I would say probably equal. It was definitely it was a learning curve for sure. And I think I for one, am still adapting to it and still figuring out what is a good routine for me. And what's a healthy balance between working and not working.
It's a strange thing that we're evolving to deal with, but I appreciate being able to talk about it. We're gonna switch gears here. So one of the things that I actually really like about doing this show is we can go pretty high-minded. Earlier on this week, I talked to a second timer named John Mack, and we actually just talked about manifestation and spirituality. We don't get to talk about that too often on the show, but we also, what we get to talk about today is what I would consider to be one of the more specific parts, because we're not just talking about the funnel, we're talking about a key element of the funnel. And where we're going to start with is the question that I always ask for people who are, either representing, or in your case, the CEO / representative of your app, which is, so for CartHook, at its inception, what problem was it observing unique in the marketplace that was going unsolved, and how is the process of solving it going?
Yeah, so CartHook has a really fun history. So CartHook today is not what it was when it was initially launched. So I stepped in as CEO earlier this year in January, but the company was founded by Jordan Gall. Jordan Gall was the founder and CEO, and he, is an entrepreneur, has an entrepreneur mindset, created some online shops, sold that, and found in his experience working in e-commerce that there was a gap that needed to be filled with cart abandonment products and apps. So he built CartHook, that initially was a cart abandonment email tool. But in that process of it, slowly, talking to merchants, familiarizing himself with the industry, shifted into focusing on the entire checkout experience. So the cart abandonment app was still a thing, but the focus went into the checkout. And so CartHook then evolved into a one-page checkout solution plus post-purchase offers that we allowed merchants who use Shopify to implement a one-page checkout plus a one-click true post-purchase app to their store. I joined in 2018 to start kind of building out the customer success and support teams. And at that point, we, had this really great app. We're evolving in the Shopify ecosystem, had a lot of really great solid brands, but wanted to build out our partnership with Shopify. So late last year, finalized that. And we are now strictly a Shopify app that focuses on the post-purchase offers app. So we evolved from giving customers, filling that need of being able to craft a customizable checkout experience to now strictly working off the Shopify app and allowing Shopify merchants to create upsell offers to really help. The bottom line is create new revenue, increase their AOV, and it also increased their customer lifetime value. So really allowing the Shopify merchants to be creative with their checkout funnels. And that starts with implementing post-purchase offers.
This is one thing that I wasn't aware of based on what Maya, my producer, had looked into, which was that initially it was more about cart abandonment emails. Now, just so that I know, is that a factor in it continuously, or is it something that you've put aside?
That has been retired. So the CartHook recovery platform was retired a few years ago, and similarly, as that's going to happen with our one-page checkout product. So we now refer to that as our legacy product. It's something that is in maintenance mode. All of our focus and investments are going into this new native Shopify app that is strictly just post-purchase focused.
I have to wonder about the thought process, because for one, why not either? So why pivot, and why not say like set up other apps and see if these other are running? Because I do understand that there are advantages to having multiple services so that you can cross-pollinate consumer activity. A lot of the other apps that we talked to, for instance, they usually have like multiple ones. So was it a matter of resources? Was it a matter of we know where we're adept at? We know exactly what problem we're focusing on. I'm just intrigued about the mindset there.
There's a lot of history on that reasoning why, and some that's like, it's the business side of when you're dealing with Shopify. And I think it strictly comes to really wanting to continue to grow our partnership and have access to more of the API opportunities that we could get if we built a direct integration out with Shopify rather than our legacy products. In gentle terms, let's say it's just a hacky workaround, right? It was a hacky workaround that allowed Shopify merchants to still use Shopify, but our checkout page. And while that had its benefits, it had a lot of hurdles. It was very complex on a technical side to set up. So we're shifting into making post-purchase offers available to everyone. So you don't have to have a technical team. You don't need a developer to set it up. So filling that need of anyone who's looking to increase their AOV and their conversions, we have an app for you. It's approachable. It's not so overwhelming as like, one of the first things we talked about for our legacy app was who is your developer, because you need it. And those are scary terms. And that's why we kind of had a small subset of brands. But now this new opportunity now open up, we're a public app on Shopify. So that opens us up to more opportunities in the entire Shopify ecosystem where, like you said, that can allow that stacking of different apps to really boost a store's tech stack to help them optimize their store and their checkout experience.
And you mentioned what is, I think, a pretty significant limiting factor for a lot of people is how heavily involved a developer needs to be in order for somebody to run a consistent store. Some of it is not really knowing the value of the developer, and respectfully, some will take advantage of that, some won't. And it goes both ways. Sometimes the developer doesn't value themselves too much and they end up being taken advantage of. So there's problems on both sides. So there's that. And so what I understand is this is part of a larger strategy that I think Shopify is also working on too, which is they want to encourage anybody who's selling anything to move on to Shopify. I've seen it in their branding. They focus on showing the significance of local stores and how this isn't a replacement for that. This is a way to elevate what they do and to broaden their market reach so that they can reach any customer who is a potential buyer of them and not just whomsoever happens to be walking along the block that day.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's just making your product more approachable to anyone. Because you're right, the developer side of things, they cannot be cheap, and it's an investment. And if you're a new Shopify store that's just getting started, that's just an investment that you can't afford to make at the time.
Okay, so this one came to mind, and I'm smiling because I think this is going to be really interesting. So, in speaking broadly about the challenge for someone to say a seller, we're just going to say they do textiles because I've always found there was a lot of mimic quality in saying textiles. and they want to set up an online store. And the first hurdle is even like, I guess getting on the internet, getting on the Shopify. And I don't think that CartHook or any app along those lines gets to be exposed to at first. Usually, Shopify is probably the first thing. So have you identified a mental level or even on a revenue level, at what point people are even starting to discover it? And also as well, I want to tie in understanding the significance of post-purchase. And so to, I guess, dovetail that question is also to, clarify for everybody just how significant post-purchase really is for anybody who happens to be at that point that I'm saying hypothetically.
Exactly. So I would find to the first point, it's not, we're not a magic solution that's going to increase your revenue once you install, right? So there's certain things when we take an approach of, like, the example is we have a new store. They just signed up. They have no traffic to their store. They have no revenue. They have no sales. We're not a good fit. So we fill that need of a store that could be new, but they've invested already in driving traffic to their site. So they've already got their top of the funnel strategy in place. So they've got their ad traffic. They have retargeting in place. They have everything lined up, and they're seeing checkouts happen. So you have to be making some sort of revenue in order to kind of implement our app, because that helps with your strategy, right? So when we're talking again to these new accounts, it's, an easy positioning of implementing post-purchase, and to see a quick win is understanding also your products. What's your best seller? That's a easy win to have as a discounted a post-purchase offer. So buying one of this, you can have a BOGO too, but you need to have sales in order to be able to then figure out your strategy. So if you're a brand new store, 0 sales, we aren't going to be a good fit right now, but talk to us in 3 months when you're seeing, orders come through and you have sales and you can see that momentum growing. Then that's the perfect time to jump on and start thinking about your post-purchase strategy, because you don't want to wait. You want to get in on it now, so that can help grow your brand once you really take off and are successful.
Yeah, I think this is an exceedingly important takeaway. And one way that I would like to, I guess, to think about it is, I was actually expecting to ask you about case studies a little bit later, but now usually when I ask about case studies, I always, defer to client confidentiality, not pointing any fingers, but there was one time where I looked on the website and I saw, a website, like a business that was being promoted. So I asked the guest about the business. The guest was like, "Well, how did you know about that?" Like, because it's on your website.
It's on your website.
He's like, "Oh, okay, yeah. we gotta." He's like texting somebody. He's like, "We gotta cut this out." So with that in mind, I would like to, contextualize some of your answer. Is if as far as you can divulge, what has stuck out to you as an ideal example of when people should be signing on?
Yeah. Well, and a customer example that we have is, this one is not a case study, but a brand that is very well known that was a deodorant brand. So they were a customer of us. So a direct to consumer deodorant brand that used our products. And they only had one offer, and it was a very simple offer of a trial size of deodorant. And that's all it was. And it was extremely successful in the conversion rate because it just made sense. So again, it was a brand that was pretty well established. So it had been around, I want to say it launched a year ago, really invested a lot in the marketing. So they got their brand well established, and then they're taking a look to say, how can I make more money? Right? So how can I take what I'm doing now and implement it? And it's a simple task of, they had the traffic, they had the checkouts, they had that revenue, and implementing a simple $2 travel deodorant converted at around, I want to say the last check was around like 70%. So it's again, when we go back to your initial question on who is this the right fit for, it is kind of all across the board, but you have to know your store, you have to know your product, and um, yeah. So I hope that that helped
It
answer
does.
your question without, names. But yeah, that's probably our biggest win, and we have several other, like a large, um, D2C brand that's in the golf club industry. So it's a high priced item, but it works well with post purchase because they're filling it in with an accessory.
Now, would you say that your target market is largely B to B2C, or is there a B2B component as well?
Yeah, so we're primarily direct to consumer. That's our good sweet spot. So that works out really well. That works out with our kind of, I wouldn't say, when I'm trying to think of, do we have a sweet spot with an industry like health and wellness does really well. We have a few consumables that do really well. So it's kind of all over the place on the industry side of things on who works great. It's again understanding your product, and then anything can work.
Well, I'd like to share an assessment that I had with it again when I was looking into this. So, being a millennial, there are certain brands that love marketing to me, and one of them is Magic Spoon. And I've been on the cusp a few times. Cheerios is a hard act to follow, but if you're listening, Magic Spoon, don't give up. And I saw that that was one of the ones that you would use as an example. So what I was trying to ascertain about the post purchase component is somebody comes onto the website, they want to buy cereal. Now, Magic Spoon as the post purchase offer is the bowl with the spoon. And I was intrigued by that because I was trying to understand, I guess, the strategy there. And in addition to just offering the product, are there other or is there something else that they're trying to accomplish as well? Like, for instance, in that, I think what they're also trying to do is also continuing to market the lifestyle. So I think for a lot of people, in the interest of trying to figure out what maturity even looks like these days, is actually tend to avoid cereal and mostly just toast and eggs or whatever it is. So part of it is selling people on that that joy of coming back to eating a bowl of cereal. And as somebody, I'm not gonna lie, like I do get nervous a lot of the times before my morning interviews, or frankly, before all of them. I have no problem admitting that, as I've done no less than 12 times. And one of the few things that actually gets through is cereal, because it's technically, to me, it's technically a soup. So all of that aside, let's just be fun, having fun talking about it. But on top of the product, so I go onto that website, and I might order a cereal like once a month, every 2 months. Are they going to continue trying to market the same product? Is that the most advantageous thing they're going to do? And then the other thing that I was also wondering too is, what else can people convey when, in addition to selling their product, again, along the lines of what kind of, is it their brand that they want to convey? How do they get more, really get more out of the post-purchase offer? So much so that even the offer is a win, even if they don't take.
Yeah. So that's a great point too. And we're speaking about, Magic Spoon, and any really sort of consumable in this category is, you're right. What are the likelihood of am I going to buy same box of the cereal I just purchased? But I don't know if you noticed when you're on Magic Spoon's site, so they have one-time purchase that you can purchase just one time, but they also have subscriptions. So a big benefit and a big win of something that we're working on building out with Shopify and a few of our brands is that upsell to a subscription. So upselling what you've just bought to your Cocoa Puffs, the offer could be get your 3 months for 50% off. So that's the shift point of, not only are they increasing that checkout revenue, but they're increasing their customer lifetime value by converting that order into a subscription. So that's the kind of the focus when we are looking at that specific type of brand is, you're right. That's not going to be like get the same box for a discounted rate. But when we think of strategy, it could be also then bundled offers. So different kind of approaches to the cereal that are a little bit outside of the box instead of just a discounted rate of the same thing. So subscriptions is going to be huge and a huge part of Magic Spoon's kind of strategy, not only with their checkout and upsells.
As you were describing this too, I did pull up the Magic Spoon website, because one thing I was wondering is if that bowl that they were working on was even visible. And just, taking using half my brain to do that and then the other half of the brain to continue to listen to, I can't see it. And maybe if I dig a little bit deeper, I might spot it. But that I was actually quite surprised by that. So there's actually I think an element of surprise and delight where there is, hey, we also have this. And then to comment on what you're describing with the subscription. So what I like about that is it's not the kind of thing I see working on first purchase, especially because, they got to try it first and they have to like it first. But then they do it again, and then they do it again, and then they realize it's become routine for them. And they're already thinking, maybe I should, I could get a subscription. That subscription they've been showing me like the other 3 times, it's going to save me time and it's going to save me money. So at this point, I'm silly not to do it. And so, and I think that's where there's a lot of strength here, which is just being able to market to somebody who has committed, but not everybody is committing at the same level based off their prior activity.
Merchants or shop owners should always be thinking about that. So targeting, like you said, I'm also like you, I'm not likely to fall into a subscription on my first initial purchase, but understanding your customer data and taking a look at, okay, this cohort of people have purchased from us multiple times. So the next time, and creating like a criteria, and I'm saying this, and this isn't something that our app can currently do, but would be cool. And things that we're looking into is more kind of AI recommendation pieces based off of shopper history, or creating funnels based off of specific criteria of what the shopper first purchased or what they previously purchased or how much revenue you've gotten from that specific customers, all things like, as I see the trends going in not only post-purchase, but in e-commerce, it's getting a lot to really customizing the shopper's experience, not only from purchase, but post-purchase, thinking of, I've already got the product and now 6 months later, I'm getting a text that's telling me I need to renew or purchase my product again. Like that's where it's going. And that's fun to see that happening. And it does kind of starting with building that customer loyalty with really strategically thinking out what offers you want to display and what's your end goal. What are you hoping to accomplish once you've got that purchase? And
I think in a way with any brand that I like, especially any e-commerce brand that I've purchased in the last little while. One example, my YouTube counterpart, Connor, he recommended this thing called Mudwater, which is not to be pejorative about it, but it was a coffee substitute. A lot less caffeine, but they make up for it with a lot more.
Just be healthier.
Herbs.
Yeah.
Not so jittery. Exactly. And what I've found is, so I haven't made up my mind yet if I want to keep using it, because if I'm being honest, I use coffee quite a bit, more so than is healthy for somebody with my anxiety levels. But all that aside, I get a lot of emails from them. And what I think it's the issue on their side is that as soon as somebody makes one purchase, they've become a subscriber, at least in the hypothetical sense, because now they're receiving the newsletter, they're potentially receiving offers, they are becoming immersed in the lifestyle. And so you have this clash of like multiple lifestyles all vying for consumer intention. So I think the onus is on the seller to get more renewals out of them, or to add more value to the renewals that they're already getting. Because if I don't order anything from them ever again, the longer this goes on, the more value I'm getting out of them for a lot less money that I had spent.
Yeah, because you're immediately just opting in because you've made a purchase. You're opting into all of their channels of communication. So it really is. I'm kind of with you on that. I've made a few one-time purchases from stores, and that is years ago, and I'm still getting communication from them. I mean, my defense, I could opt out, but it is like, I want to see kind of what what I can get. So I don't know if they're.
Well, I mean, I like the archival element of emails, so that if, like, for instance, I talk about Manta Sleep all the time because I use their sleep mask, and at this point, there is so much information on sleep. Now, mind you, I haven't read most of the content, but I do love the idea that my email inbox is basically like a library now, where I just have all of this reference material for all of these different all these different products. Not just that, even podcasts that I've subscribed to too. Even if I'm not listening to each episode, if I sign up for the newsletter, I'm getting new episodes and there's reference material and all there. So it's our emails have actually become a treasure trove of information over the long run. All right, I got that on my system. So here's one of the big things that I was wondering about, and this is in regards to the psychology of post-purchase. Now, one of the things that I like to do whenever possible is related in some way to the in-person experience that somebody might have when they go to a brick and mortar store. So now I've been on both sides. Like I've worked retail, and then I've also been a customer of retail. And I still remember, and I still get nightmares once in a while of trying to do like upsells and try to talk customers into something that they may not have intended to come in and get that day. Like somebody's looking for a watch. It's like, what would go well with that watch? Purse for your wife.
Like,
so
okay.
The hard part for me, and by the way, this is not actually related to what we're talking about in aggregate. I just want to get out of my system, which is the hard part for me was it was rather disingenuous. For the most part, customers, they knew what they wanted to, and I felt I was doing my best when I was guiding them to the right call. So that aside, I cannot for the life of me think of a equivalence for post-purchase, because generally speaking, once people have committed to the purchase, they're on their way out. So we'll break this on to a couple of questions and a couple of points for you to raise. One of them is the, I guess, resistance, or if this was something that it may have actually been a surprise. Like, oh, well, this is actually working. Consumers, after they've paid, they're willing to commit to continued payments. The second point that I welcome you to raise is there an equivalent to this? Because I don't think there is. I think this is very specifically an e-commerce thing.
No, you're right. Very specific to e-commerce. And there's lots of different ways in e-commerce to present offers. And so we found that are, in CartHook side, it's post-purchase, but I don't know if you, in your checkout experience have experienced pre-purchase. So before you make your checkout, there's an offer. There's also thank you page offers. So after you've gone through entire things, but we've found that post-purchase is what works well, because there's not any risk of backfiring after you've already captured that initial purchase. So, we use an example of like pre-purchase, that can maybe come off as spammy, and you could potentially risk losing that initial purchase, and then you're out an entire order. But with the post-purchase side of things, you've already captured the initial order. There's no risk of like backfiring on the post-purchase offer. There's also far less friction when it comes to post-purchase. With CartHook, it's just one click. It's yes, add this to my initial order, and they go on with their day. Also less friction because there's you're not presenting them with a ton of offers, right? So you've crafted hopefully this personalized experience for someone who has just checked out on your store, that allows the likelihood of them to accept that offer. It just increases it. So it's a gentle way of introducing a product to add to the shopper's initial cart to, again, help increase your AOV and increase that customer lifetime value.
Yeah, I think you raise a lot of important points there, especially about how how you can only front load so much information for the customer, and it actually would make it harder for them to make up their mind rather than their mind already made up, and they're in a different state at that point. And then bringing back what we had talked about some of the brands is the surprise and delight factor in offering products or services that they might not have actually encountered. So
Mm-hmm.
it's, hey, now you're part of an exclusive club. Now here's
Mm-hmm.
something that other people aren't going to know about. So I think that it ties into the psychology of it. And so my next question, this is exceedingly granular and specific, because one thing I was just wondering about is the way it measures the average order value. So I think what you said was they can add it into their previous order. So does that mean that, say, for instance, I buy something and it's $50, and then I get the post purchase, I agree to it. Now that one purchase is now $100, or is it? I mean, if people have the option to, can they also split it into two purchases?
That's a good question. How it works for us and within Shopify is, to the shopper, it appears as one complete order, right? So I've purchased my sandals and I get my clutch, add-on clutch with that all initial order. On the Shopify side, with some coding and use of their API, we combine it then in Shopify as one order. So there's the initial and then there's post-purchase. And so for the merchant, it's easy on the fulfillment side because everything is all parsed in as that one order. Yeah. And there's the shopper also doesn't need to add in their credit card again. So it's just a seamless step of like, all right, yeah, this feels like a really good deal. Like you can, go off of the FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, well, you're right. What if this is just a deal just for me? I'm just going to take it. And then, go on with my day.
Right.
Yeah.
So and again, I'm just saying this back just so that I can process it accurately. And apologies, it is drilling season here in my apartment. Is the actual transference of the money is actually on hold. So somebody clicks pay now, the money hasn't actually transferred yet. Mm-hmm. This is where CartHook comes in and says, actually, we got this for you.
Yeah, like, hold on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Says, maybe next time. So they say no, and then the money goes through. Or they say yes, and then that is added on to it. So that's rather seamless.
Yeah. So, nitty gritty of it is, Shopify kind of hangs on to that payment token until a certain period of time that's, it's because someone can also close out of the offer, right? And we still want that initial order to go through. So after a certain period of time, if something's abandoned, then it just completes the transaction. But you're right. Yeah, we hang on to that payment token, get them through the entire funnel, and then everything's wrapped up with a bow, sent over into Shopify for fulfillment.
Perfect. Super clarity right there.
Yeah.
So, and also one of the things that you had mentioned is, so when the customer is thinking, I don't want to miss out on this. This might be a special offer for me. Mm-hmm. So on that note is, what is the flexibility of determining what product is going to be offered to what customer? What metrics do you have, or does the seller have at their disposal to maybe differentiate who's being offered what?
Yeah, it depends on the store owner understanding their products as recommendations for people just getting started. I mentioned earlier, like an obvious choice is just using like your best seller. So trying that out, but it's really up to the store owner to really create the funnel criteria. I think a great way it's not an immediate win on the revenue side of things, but building that brand loyalty, that customer lifetime value is offering like a free product. So it could be a free new sample of, we work with several beauty brands, and that's a great way for them to announce new products is with a free trial. So that's, there's lots of different ways to kind of incorporate the post-purchase offers with the products that you have. You can see if you have high converting, or if you're high bestseller, that should be a post-purchase offer. Think of along the lines, if your inventory is high for a certain product that's not selling that much, maybe that's an offer at a discounted rate. Or if you're moving product to, get ready for a new product release, that product release could be like a free offer or a discounted rate. So, all of that is, tracked in two places. They need to obviously pay attention in their Shopify analytics of their conversion rate, but then within our app, we have data as well on like your top converting post-purchase funnel. revenue that you've gained from that funnel. So it allows you to really kind of take all of those data points to either create a funnel, set it and forget it, or create multiple ones and see what happens.
So my next question, and this is one that's come to my mind organically, and I also recognize the inherent silliness of this, but I'm just going to go for it anyways, which is what would happen if somebody wanted to use multiple post-purchase apps? Is there a viable reason for that, or are they going to have to decide on which one is best for them?
Yeah, well, one, they can't do it because it's like Shopify wouldn't know like which one to fire. So you would have to pick one. So you can have multiple ones installed, but how Shopify works is you have to like select, well, which one do I want to be active right now, and set that one active.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And then one more granular follow up to that. So let's just say, for instance, that hypothetically, there might be a specific offer that I could use a different upsell app for. And so it would activate under that condition, but then the remaining conditions would be active on another one. Or is it that, and sorry, you can't do that. You're going to have to stick to one.
Yeah, no, because, maybe it's a cool thing, maybe it's not, but all of my competitor apps were all built on the same API structure. So yeah, it's an either or. You can have multiple ones installed, but in order for the correct API to know when to fire, you have to have that app enabled.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to ask that one. I know, again, it's kind of like, well, that's a very specific scenario, but yeah.
It comes up daily in support interactions because it makes sense. People are testing out different products to see what they can do. And they're like, I want to A/B test this product with this app, this product with yours. Like, it's not working. It's like, well, yeah, that's a great idea, but you can't do it. Yeah.
I'm surprised. I mean, I guess I would expect it to come up. I'm surprised to hear it comes up every day, but
yeah, every day, all the time. Yeah.
All right. So the next one that we wanted to make sure we talked about too were, what are top performing verticals? And I usually understand how a vertical works in context, but I'm actually not clear on what would be how the top performing verticals are. So much so that you might have already answered the question just based off the conversation we've been having so far. So could you help me contextualize this, like what actually makes something a vertical, and then what are the top performing ones?
Vertical, how we look at verticals on our side is breaking it out into like industries, is how we use that in marketing as well. So we are still relatively a new app and still working on getting that data point of what vertical works best or what's a top converting vertical in our ecosystem. I'd say right now it's definitely in the direct to consumer, in the consumables. So that could be a vitamin, CBD gummies do really well. It's kind of whatever is on trend now, even outside of e-commerce. So think of like gummies, the health and wellness gummies are huge right now, and they're doing really well with us because that's where the market is focused at the moment. We find that beauty brands and kind of the beauty industry and vertical work well with us as well, like health and wellness. It's all over, it's each vertical does work well. It's that person owning that specific brand needs to know what they want to accomplish and understand like their strategy in implementing post-purchase offers. But we have food, like you've seen food with Magic Spoon. We have several food brands that have come to us, like Bragg's apple cider vinegar, that works well. So it's hard to pinpoint like what vertical works well. Hopefully we'll have that data points coming into 2022 once we have a full year under our belts of having this app running.
Okay. I mean, the follow-up question I had to that, but again, I also recognize that it might not be crystal clear yet, but have you also spotted which verticals are currently struggling with making this work?
No, we haven't. And that's something maybe we should look into. But that's not currently a data point that, we haven't looked into. Because again, we're approachable. We're trying to, a fun kind of workshop we're doing internally as now, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is big in e-commerce. So we are at the over halfway point to Black Friday. And so internally as a team of how we initially built out this product, we had our ideal customer persona built out. That's shifted since we are now 7 months into launch. So we're doing kind of a workshop of taking a look at different data points, and that's customer churn. So, what are the typically when we look at stores who install our apps and then uninstall same day, that's going to help us silo it down into, is this a specific vertical? Is it something we talked about earlier on in the conversation? Are these new stores that don't have revenue? And so doing this kind of workshop will help us then craft like this ideal customer persona that will not only help us on the marketing side, but then product to make sure we're building the product for the right kind of subset of Shopify merchants.
I got a couple more questions that I'm wondering about, and one of them is actually, I guess, more about your own brand strategy. This ties into some of the stuff that we established earlier on. Again, bringing Magic Spoon once more into the crucible, which is when using that one in particular as part of your pitch is Magic Spoon. I don't have their data on hand, but I presume they're doing pretty well. They found a target market that's working very well for them. So hats off to that. I mean, so obviously success is one metric that would go great when pitching the efficacy of your app to others. But I'm also wondering too, is there something about the mindset or the tone or the vibe of the brands that are being presented that allow you to show a side of the company you want to make sure people are aware of?
Yeah, that is a good question. And maybe I'm not 100% following what my answer should be. So you're just looking for on our approach when we're marketing towards bringing on example, like more of the Magic Spoon type stuff. Yeah, that comes with our messaging a little bit. We try to definitely position ourselves to, this will change once we finish this kind of research we're doing on the ideal customer persona, but that more enterprise level, more established brands that we work well with. Magic Spoon is one of them. So that's definitely kind of how we shift when we're looking at our brand strategy and who we're marketing to. Again, all of this could be a total wash when we look at the data on who our ideal customer is. But historically, how we have done it is really positioning it towards that agencies that are building out, we have some that work with celebrities, building out celebrity brands. And so we partner with them to help them add this into their tech stack when creating the new Shopify Plus accounts for these merchants. So yeah, we try to also pump out, like we've talked about before, tons of case studies, blog posts. We are big on the partner relationships. So really creating an experience when it comes time for our success team to demo on why CartHook. Is we want to become these industry leaders in your post-purchase strategy. So it's siloing in on that is we want to do that. We want to do it really well.
Yeah, I once in a while, a question of mine, like it's like 70% clear, and like, oh no, well, what have I done?
Well, no, it also could have been me too. I was like, I'm following it and I'm not. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. So yeah, I'll leave it there because we're closing in on the hour, so I don't have too much time left with you. So here's my final agenda. Number one, another thing that I always want to do in these circumstances is just make sure that if there was a stone left to be unturned, I'd want to give you a chance to unturn it. If there's anything else you want to let us know about it, maybe something I forgot to ask, I will give the floor to you to just make sure that we're all clear.
Yeah, I mean, this was a great conversation, and I don't know if this is my time to pitch if anyone's interested in finding out more about CartHook and how we can help your brands increase your store's AOV. They can head over to carthook.com. We offer a 14-day free trial. There's no risk to that. Uninstall, you're not charged. But yeah, this was a lot of fun and a really fun podcast. So appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And I take responsibility for that because there was one other question that I was going to ask, but it's not quite on topic because it's what I wanted to ask you about the sustainability. So for
Yeah.
people, I recommend they go to the CartHook blog. There's a lot of good information there, and the sustainability one stuck out to me. Because I think usually what brands, regardless of their size, they get into is this notion that if they put too much of their resources into acquiring more high quality materials, it starts to limit their profit margin to the point where they actually aren't profitable. So I just wanted to get, I guess, the Cliff's Notes take on it from your point of view is, what have you seen to actually contradict this or counteract this? And at what point is the sustainability actually not only, good for good sake, but also helpful to the long-term growth of a business?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it's one, like you said, it's the right thing to do. It's something that I think every business should be conscious of. There's a lot of sustainability issues when it comes to 2-day shipping. We can see Amazon has made changes in that front of longer shipping times to cut down on carbon emissions. And so it's one thing that it's always good to be hyper aware of. Is it more expensive right now? Yes. But if more brands start picking up and being more socially conscious, that it could lower costs of getting recyclable material that you can ship in, having a little bit longer shipping days. I've experienced that recently, and it was definitely a shift in my mindset to just be like, oh, I want it in 24 hours. And then realizing and kind of doing my own personal resources on one, the carbon emissions from airlines and all that shipping is insane. And then not only the product waste that comes into just additional packing materials. So I think I hope this trend continues. And yeah, like you mentioned, we have a really great blog post that we did with EcoCart. They're strictly focused on helping brands become more socially aware of the environmental impact of e-commerce, kind of the shipping world. So I hope to see those costs go down. And I think the more people that adapt to it, the more likelihood that will happen.
And one thing that I'll touch on that as well is that I actually kind of enjoy waiting, not too long, but I do enjoy the anticipation of something. I'm like, oh yeah, when's that book getting here? Oh my God, it's finally here. So
I think it's the shift we've been so used to over the past few years as the millennial mindset of having things and having it now. I'm so used to it's like my phone is connected to my hand at all times. And so I'm so used to having anything I want right now that it's like, all right, I'm not going to die if I don't have this tomorrow. And if it helps just a little bit in preserving this world that we have, this planet that we have, like, why not?
Yeah.
And
it's not shipping related, but somewhat related in my point about anticipation. I booked a getaway for myself and my girlfriend, and it's another like 55 days away. So these next 55 days are more exciting for having something to wait for. So
to look forward to. Yeah.
All right. Well, we're all good to go. We're gonna wrap this bad boy up. You did let the customers know, or let our audience know, potential customers,
potential,
where how to reach you guys out. So with that checkbox checked, there is one other thing that I just wanted to give you an opportunity to do is, if there's like a piece of advice or a Chinese proverb or like a saying that's been sticking out to you lately that you want to share, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we will get you on out of here.
Oh, awesome. I wish I had one. I don't. But now you're leading me into thinking I should probably have some sort of grand statement to end things with. But
so it's all good. I usually have something to cover just in case. So I've chambered a few just in case. So
just
one that
one up for me.
I'll share for my audience is, it takes getting better to admit when you were worse. So I came to this conclusion from more of a creative point of view. It's about like, oh, this is pretty good, and people would criticize it and be like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I would get better and be like, okay, I understand what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
And it's a very difficult mindset to get through, because I think the overcorrection to that is just thinking everything is terrible all the time and never believing in our work, and that's not good either. So
no.
What I've come to is thinking, this is my best work yet. the yet is the asterisk. It's this, I will get better, but this is also the best that I can do in the situation that I'm in. So that was actually the last one I had
like
chambered.
it.
I'm going to have to get another one ready before my next interview. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, this was a lot of fun.
I'm glad to hear. I have a, I'm just happy to have this position. Gets to meet great people and to be a part of a solution rather than being part of a problem. You know, a lot of people
exactly.
They've had a lot of struggles, and I think giving people an opportunity to bring out the marketer in them is changing a lot of lives, not just the seller, but also the people that they're selling to. So, go e-commerce. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Awesome.
To my audience, as always, it is an honor and a privilege to collect this information and provide with all of you. Oh, I was so close. I almost got it right that time. With that, we will check in soon. Take care.
Call out the correct target audience. Ensure that, okay, this male 20.
Hey, this is Joseph from Ecomonics. Just wanted to thank you for being here and for giving this content your time and attention. I hope you learned something. I can say with certainty, I have learned something with every episode that I have done, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. There's a couple of things you can do to help us out. If you want to check out the audio content, we are available on all major podcast platform distributors. And while you're there, give us a 5-star review. It helps a lot. And while you're here on YouTube, there's a lot of things you can do to help out as well. It's not going to take very long. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button for this episode, and hit the notification bell so when we have new content for you, it's going to be at your doorstep ASAP. Lastly, this podcast is created by Debutify, the best Shopify template available. It is 100% free for you to start, and it can change your life. It can make you so much more free than you are right now. So if this episode wasn't enough to convince you, I think a few more might do the trick. So have at it.